A mistake is a mistake only until I learn from it. Once the lesson is learned, then I no longer make that mistake again. Then the original mistake becomes wisdom. So much so that I can quote it, I can share it with people on a public platform so that those who are going through a similar situation, they can understand it and they can be understood and they are empathized. When a mistake is not owned, accepted, then it becomes a burden, a trauma, a setback in life, a sad story, an unfortunate event, an encounter with a bad person, and so forth. And a so called good memory can turn into a bad memory because of lack of ownership of this mistake. Perhaps the word mistake should not be mistaken as a mistake. Perhaps we should give a new name to the word mistake because I think it's a mistake to call a mistake a mistake. It's a learning opportunity. It's a challenge given in life to overcome. Is obstacle a mistake? Is challenge a mistake? Is an opportunity to learn and grow a mistake? Certainly not. But it is perceived so when the so called mistake is not acknowledged and understood as it is and owned so that I can learn from it and not repeat it. Kingdoms could have been saved if and when the so called mistakes were owned and rectified. Perhaps that's a good place to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you were hurt. Perhaps that was not my original intention. And perhaps it was my original intention, and I can change my ways. When a mistake is made, which we all do, Professor John Johnson in University of Santa Barbara, in his first lecture, he said, I make mistakes every day, and I allow you to make mistakes. My only goal is that tomorrow I make fewer mistakes than today. And he was deemed and awarded as the best National Teachers Award. And he was one of the most important teachers for me because of this particular statement. Because we were free to explore and we were allowed to make mistakes. We ventured outside the so-called boundaries of what we were expected. It is so appealing when I or you or someone else, we acknowledge our mistakes. Whether we say I am sorry, whether those words are exchanged or not, whether it's not about embarrassing yourself in front of other people. In society, we take mistake to be a stigma, and it is considered that, oh, I don't want to be embarrassed in front of other people or looked down upon. In my eyes, when somebody accepts a mistake, it is a very honorable thing. I think highly of them. Certain managers would take responsibility of mistakes of the entire group. If there's a mistake made in a group, a good manager will take responsibility of that mistake as a good leader. That's how important and useful it is. It is not just a public relations stunt. And the idea is that when you take ownership of that mistake, then you look at what led to that mistake, and then you look at the processes, and you institute whether training or, hey, next time something like that happens, this will be my response, or how I can prevent a problem like that to take place in future to start with. In our personal lives, when we take ownership of that, we grow. And those mistakes turn into wisdom. Amazon is a prime example, no pun intended, Amazon Prime, of making mistakes. And Amazon Prime, is one of thousands of mistakes that Amazon has made. That Prime actually was successful, and other mistakes were just learning lessons. They just learned something that didn't work. If you try 100 things, perhaps one of them will work because you've learned. Like Thomas Edison said, he says, have you failed 99 times? He says, no, I have learned 99 ways that how electric bulb doesn't work. He just knows what not to do the next time because he's tried it. He's learned from it. When you take ownership of a mistake and you continue to move along that path, then you go down in the history as a pioneer, as an inventor, as a leader, as a source of inspiration. And when ownership of your mistakes is not taken, it destroys relationships, it destroys families, it destroys societies, it wastes time. We lose precious life opportunities. So the idea is not to feel guilty about what we have done in the past and how we have not taken ownership of our past mistakes. The idea is that from this point onwards, this will be my modus operandi. This is the way I live my life. This is the way I lead my life. That I acknowledge and accept my mistakes and I sit with them and I learn from them and I take ownership of them, and then I do not repeat those mistakes. When I do not repeat those mistakes, then even the original mistake is no longer a mistake. It's a learning lesson. We need to make more of those mistakes. I love me.